What is time? We know time is a measurement of numbers. You can measure those numbers in distance, width, but how we mostly use a measurement of numbers is to tell us what time to be at a place, and if this place is a school or workplace, unless you're an entrepreneur, if you are exchanging your time for wages, then it gives us an increment of when to be at a place and when we depart from that place. Also, when you set up an appointment to see a doctor, a lawyer, have a coffee date, whichever way you choose to use it. Debates have raged for centuries if time was created by humans or God himself. But the master clock exists not only intrinsically in the human body, but also in nature, plants, animals, many different other species. This term has been described by scientists as circadian rhythm. The way I like to define it is the master clock. The master clock sounds a lot more persuasive, a lot more innovative. But of course, scientists are not in the game of marketing, right? Circadian rhythm is physical, mental, and behavioral changes that follow a daily cycle. Circadian rhythms are found in most living things, including animals, plants, and even tiny microbes, tiny bacteria that is so small it cannot be seen by the human eye. Now, some examples of the master clock are your sleep and wake cycle. Have you ever had a time, and this happened to me many times. I'm a night owl. Now that I'm independent, I like to stay up quite a bit. But when I was working 9 to 5, I remember on Friday nights, I would talk about how I was going to stay up all night, but I would pass out around 8 or 9 o'clock. And the next morning, without an alarm, I would purposely not set an alarm. I would find myself still waking up around 5 o'clock. That's because your body has a sleep-wake cycle. Plants perform photosynthesis during the day. That's how they create food. You get hungry around the same time every day. I've noticed since I've been on a strict workout 5 days a week, I typically don't eat anything for a while when I first wake up. Then eventually I get some fuel in my body. A few hours later, I perform my exercise. And then I eat one more meal before I head to sleep. What I've noticed is I'm starting to eat a lot less, lose a lot more weight, and gain a lot more muscle mass as I burn more calories. That's the hardest thing because our bodies are programmed for survival. Back in the hunter-gatherer days, when food was inconsistent, humans had to eat a lot. They felt like if they didn't eat, they might go days, and this was true in some cases, without getting food. That's why you overeat to the point of making yourself sick. Now, this can be avoidable simply by making a concerted effort to eat less every day. Eventually, it will become natural. But what's also interesting is this happens in other species. So it is a natural process. Cockroaches have most of their feeding hours at night. Some flowers blossom once a day at a specific time. Honeybees reach these flowers at the same time with the help of its own biological clock. Some crabs exhibit cycle variation in their shell color. They are lighter during the daytime and get darker as night falls. This prevents their detection from predators. I've noticed this too. I remember one time on the beach, this was a few years ago, I was walking with my cousin, and all of a sudden, and this was dark, I heard her shriek, and I looked, and apparently she stepped on a crab, and that crab's shell was really dark. It blended in with the night sky. So the circadian rhythm, if you break it down to what it is from a scientific, technical standpoint, it is the body clock, a 24-hour cycle that tells our bodies when to sleep, rise, and eat, regulating many physiological processes. This internal body clock is affected by environmental cues like sunlight and temperature, and determines whether one feels wide awake and energized or tired and depleted at different times of the day. That's why you typically get tired around the same time, eat around the same time, wake around the same time. It all has to do with that master clock. And the great thing about humans is that we are creatures of adaptation. And if you teach your master clock how to adapt, then you can pretty much do whatever it is you want to do within reason.